So my guest tonight is a self-professed tech nerd. She's a banker. She's a content creator and an influencer. And she says she loves to help people understand complicated tech. Whether you're a business owner, content creator, or just someone who wants to build a brand, who wants to live stream, who wants to know about tech, and who wants to hear a story that leads to online content creation and influence, this is the episode for you. I'm so glad that you're here. If you're new to me, I'm Dr. Dwayne Wood. That's Wood with an E. The E stands for endocrinology. And here on the channel, I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health, take charge of your life, avoid complications, and create the life you've always wanted, going to the next level. You've caught me in the middle, and I could say in the middle because we're on day number 16 of Vlogmas. As you know, Vlogmas, every year, December, content creators come aside and they try to expand, improve, and grow. You see my logo right there. So if you are out there and you see any kind of content with that logo, you want to go over, and I want you to go over and support that content creator, because right now they are working to tweak, to improve, and to get better at what they do. And the benefit to us as content creators is that we get to grow and we get to expand and we get to experiment. And the benefit for you, our audience, our clients, our patients, is you get to see us do it. And sometimes you get to see us do it in real time, as you've seen on this show. So my shout out to all the content creators this year, this Vlogmas, who are in the process of improving and in process of expanding. Thank you for what you do for the community. On the channel, I have been highlighting people who have been doing their thing in their space, wherever they find themselves. And we've had an amazing lineup so far for the month. And you saw earlier this month or earlier this week, right, the lineup that we had, and it just gets better and better and better. And tonight is no exception. And we're gonna introduce her here in just a minute. If you're new to me, please go ahead and put new in the comments. If you're watching this on the replay, put replay in the comments, and we would love to connect and engage with you. Well, enough said about all that. I have been watching my guest, and I've been watching her shows, and she inspired me actually earlier this year to go live and do a show every day. She did actually 100 days. I didn't quite do that, but but through watching her, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to try it. I couldn't quite do 100, but it was exciting. She is from part of where I'm from, right? Brooklyn, right? We roll like we roll. And eventually she moved away, and she went to Philly, and she has been, and I'm not going to get into all of her story because she's going to share some of that with us, but I'm excited to have on the show tonight, India Delgado. India, I am so excited that you're here. Thanks for coming through.
Hey, hey, hey. What is your Brooklyn? New York.
There you go. We might have to explain Europe to people
in
a minute. So thanks for being here. And my question to you, right, has nothing to do with the show, is do you have all your gifts ready and wrapped?
Not wrapped. My tree's not even up, but my gifts, not all gifts. No. So no, and no. But I did start. I did start my mom. I got my mom a gift, and I got Angie a gift. So those are two, and I started to get Angie's kids gifts. So I'm like halfway there.
All right.
Yeah.
You know, it always sneaks up on me. Like every year, I'm like, okay, yeah, it's Christmas already, and it's the end of the year.
Yeah. And if you're going to order, you might as well like start ordering like tomorrow to make sure it gets here in time.
Right. Well, good.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited to have you here, and this has been a show that I have been anticipating, just talking with you and having you as a guest. So why don't you take a brief minute and just introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, I am India Delgado, banker by day, content creator, and entrepreneur now all the time. I used to say at night, but now I am in the process of becoming self-employed 100%. I'm working on building my business, and really the brand that I am building is helping you to digitally present your best self. The biggest thing when we went to the pandemic, right? First impressions are everything. So when people enter a room, especially where I'm from, even you, Dwayne, right? Like in corporate America, in the environments like you're in the medical environment, You have to dress up. You have to, like that's just, again, first impressions. People are judging you by the way you look. You can't come in as a doctor looking all sloppy and wrinkled and stuff, because chances are they're going to be like, I don't want him to be my doctor, right? Same thing for me as a banker. It's like I come in looking a hot mess. It's like I don't want her handling my money. So unfortunately, that's a part of first impressions. And I feel like a lot of people, that first impression went to wayside when we transitioned into video conferencing and digital conferences like Zoom and WebEx and Teams and things like that. And so my goal is to help you digitally create that great first impression again with a camera setup, audio setup, overlays, logos, all of that good stuff, in the tech. And it's so funny because I say that elevator pitch, and I'm in the process of rebuilding my studio away from my studio. So it's not that this is bad, but my first impression can be a little bit better. But again, it's all a work in progress, and I think that that's also good to show the progression. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. I do really, like you said, help to simplify tech for us everyday content creators, entrepreneurs that are looking to really build your business into content creation, because right now that's where it's at.
Awesome. Awesome. And I am trying to
Yeah.
remember where
Mm.
I first met you, and I can't remember actually where I met you, but it seems like,
Mm.
and all of us have met, in the digital space. So
Yeah.
so I guess that's
Yeah.
a thing
Yeah.
now, right?
Yeah. It is.
But just kind of watching you adopting actually some of what you do, and we had Kirk Nugent on a couple of nights ago, and I was telling him that
Yeah.
you, Doc, Luria, when I started looking, okay, who am I going to pattern what I do after? You and Diana Gladney were the people who I started looking at. So I'm glad that I'm able to
thank
get
you.
you here on the show. So cool.
Thank you. That is super cool.
Well, so let's go back. So what did
Yeah.
India wanted to be? What did you want to be when you grew up? Everybody has that. Okay, I'm going to be this. What was your thing when you were a little kid?
Really want to know that? I wanted to be a police officer, always, from when I was in kindergarten all the way through high school. I, from kindergarten, I always wanted to do it. And then I got to the point in high school where in New York, there's this program called the Explorers, where you can, different police precincts, you go in and it's like an after school program and you're working with police officers. I went to John Jay University for criminal justice for a hot minute while I was still in New York. And I think about that, right? Because it's so not technically, it's so radically different from what I'm doing now, even as a banker, and how I'm trying to build my business. But when you really peel back the onion, and when you really think about what it was about me wanting to be a police officer, it was me helping people, right? And that's at its core what I've always wanted to do. If we really break something down, it's that I've always wanted to help people. And when you think about my transition in careers throughout my life, I've always been in a career to help people, whether it was even in retail, selling things that I helped you, whether back in the day when I worked at Radio Shack, helping you understand the tech back then, and then transitioning even into banking as a bank manager. And then that's where I feel like my passions really started to, I felt the purpose, understanding what my purpose really was. And that's where that helping you came into play, coaching people. That's where I started to develop those skills and the financial literacy piece of it, helping minorities such as ourselves understand generational wealth. And that's where it was oh, this is what God put me here for. This is what my voice is. And then just transitioning that into, because I am a nerd at heart. So then transitioning that desire within me to help people, just really turning it into all the things tech and nerdy stuff and geeking out with people. So
Wow. Now you said a word in there that I don't even know if people remember. Radio Shack.
man, listen. I love Radio Shack. You want to talk about a nerd? Like that was when, if someone were to ask me what was the best job I ever had, through now, it was definitely, I always say Radio Shack. And it was because I got to test the tech before it hit the shelves, right? So I knew about those product launches. I knew the iPhones were coming in. I worked for Radio Shack when the iPhone 3GS was launched, the original iPhone, right? I was selling those phones. I worked for Radio Shack, like we talk about now. I worked for Radio Shack when back when laptops, you used to be able to buy laptops and it still would be, we sold, put it this way, we sold RAM upgrades and we sold hard drive upgrades. So when I talk about helping, when I worked there, was having a conversation, understanding this and then upselling the RAM upgrade, buying it, right? Opening it up on the Radio Shack counter and upgrading the RAM for them, like installing, from 4 gigs to 16 gigs and going from whatever it was back then. Man, I used to nerd out back then. Those are the
The good
times.
old days.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
selling batteries with every purchase.
I know. Wow. Yeah. So Radio Shack was, I was trying to find some circuits. I mean, and not to get into that. So resistors and stuff, because I wanted to do something with my son, and I couldn't find a local store anywhere that had that kind of stuff. But that's what Radio Shack was, an awesome place.
Yep. Yeah. The parts
Wow.
drawers. That's what we called it. The parts drawers.
The part stores. Wow.
Yeah.
And so wanting to be a police officer in New York City, I mean, and I get that, right? Because police officers in New York and I'm sure other places, you look to them with admiration, and the boys in blue. And is that where that term comes from? I think because they were the only ones in blue at the time. Yeah.
Yeah,
the boys in blue.
I think so. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so wanted to be a police officer, not doing that right now. But what was next for you? You went to John Jay. I went to Tech, Brooklyn Tech. Started at Midwood briefly. That's a whole other story, but Tech. And so how did your passion for people play out in your early years? Now I know becoming a banker, and of course that's where everything kind of exploded. But what happened? What led you to this path?
So if we actually follow the path from me, wanting to be a police officer, I was, going to school full time, working to obviously make a living. And I was working at Home Depot. And I think I was working the night shift. I was a department supervisor working the night shift. And I was talking with one of the assistant managers. We were closing and, we're just walking the store. And he was asking me my aspirations and what I wanted to do and what I was going to school for. And so I told him, and his name is Eric. And I'll never forget, because the store was closing. And when I told him that, he was like, and this was back. So I was in John Jay. I finished high school. We're 2000, 2001 era. And at the time, who was it? Was it Mayor Bloomberg? It might have been Mayor Bloomberg. They had just done drastic salary cuts for starting salaries for NYPD. And it was like $35,000 a year. Like that's what you were going into NYPD making. And I remember Eric looking at me, and he was like, and the Brooklyn in him was like, "Man, what? Nah. You're not going to go out and risk your life every day in the way they treat these cops out here to make $35,000. You're too smart for that. You can be an assistant manager, and look at what I'm doing. I'm hanging out with you. Look at how I'm dressed. I make $100,000 a year." And I was like, and I was 19, 20 years old. Right. And I'm like, it really, that big click for me. It wasn't that I was seeing, was when he said, life with $5,000 to start off with a year, and do what I was doing at Home Depot, where I'm like, you deal with customers, irate customers, and it's 3 times more, literally. That was where the shift for me, immediately I was like, he's not wrong. And so what happened was I started transitioning and spending more of my time being a department supervisor and going into leadership, and having people like him really mold me and mentor me, and found that naturally I had that knack for leadership. Which, again, if we break down what was it for me within leadership, it wasn't just leadership, but it was coaching and developing. It was really understanding people, connecting with people, motivating people, getting a team to really work with you and follow you. Um, and so that was my progression. I went from a department supervisor at Home Depot. I transitioned into a few different Home Depot stores. So the store that's in Long Island City at the time was one of the busiest stores in the country, and I was a manager there. And so it took off, and then I went from Home Depot to Radio Shack, and then retail was it for me. I was like, no, because then it's physical labor in brick and mortar stores like that, right? And then it was also crazy stores, when crazy hours. I mean, Long Island City back in the day, those stores used to be 24 hours. Home Depot, and people used to go shopping at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. Like, so it was crazy, insane hours, physical labor. Um, and I was like, yeah, something's got to give. And so I was recruited. I remember I had my, back when monster.com was on and popping, it was like LinkedIn. I had my resume on monster.com. A recruiter from Wells Fargo reached out to me, and I had never thought of banking. And so we had a conversation. She, sold me on the leadership pitch, on the coaching pitch, sent me the job description, and certain banks call their branches stores. I also worked for TD Bank. TD Bank calls their branches stores. So I was a store manager, not a bank manager. And really, the premise is that you are providing customer service in that retail environment. And so that's how I transitioned. So I went from retail selling tangible products to then, retail leadership selling intangible, coaching a team, leading a team. And that's then where I transitioned, like I said, into that financial literacy. And so then the other piece was, and now I do mortgages. That's what I do full time in the banking world. But my niche as a loan officer is not that I just do mortgages. My niche is to help low to moderate income individuals, and also to ensure that the bank is lending in low to moderate income areas. And a big part of that, when you look at the demographics, a big part of that is, again, to Black and brown people like us, to minorities, or to people that are under, whatever the median income is, that weren't given the tools to understand savings, to understand credit, to understand debt to income ratio, and all of those terms. So I'm very niched down with what I do. And again, if we pinpoint, we peel back the onion, it really is just helping people just get live better lives, whether it's through owning your own home, or, and so then if we take that the next step, if we continue to connect the dots to the present day, what happened was, and how I really transitioned into building my own business as an entrepreneur slash content creator, is that when the pandemic happened, so the banks have a federal obligation to perform financial literacy. And so the pandemic happened, but our obligations they didn't, the federal government didn't say, oh, you don't need to do financial literacy. We had to continue to provide those pieces back to the community. So it transitioned. I went from public speaking and teaching in libraries, not nonprofits, at chambers, in the branches and things like that, to transitioning all to Zoom. And so I was like, and this is how I came and found Ecamm, because I started off with OBS because I needed to bring my camera, as well as having the actual presentation on the screen. And so OBS was very cumbersome, very clunky. And it still was like, this is too much work for me. Started doing research, and then found Ecamm, found how easy it is, for me at least, right? You drag your logo, you create lower thirds, you throw in a presentation, and I was sold. And the mentality was, well, because my very first And you can tell I'm very animated, right? I connect with people. That's a big part of who India is. I'm engaging, I connect, and I feed off of your energy, right? And so that's actually really hard for us as content creators, as live streamers, really engaging with your audience when you're live and paying attention to the comments and making your viewers feel special. That's the only way you get to connect with those people. And so when I was teaching financial literacy, my very first seminar that I did, there were about 50 people within that first seminar that I did, and it was through Zoom. Everyone had their cameras off. So all I saw was a black sea of boxes where it just said their names on Zoom. And the one guy who had his camera on was literally like this, asleep. I was mortified. This was before I found Ecamm and OBS. This was just me doing like a screen share, right? Trying to literally, like, how do I figure this out? Mortified. And I'm not used to this. I was like, I'm used to people asking me questions, right? When I get to like the credit piece, when I get to the income piece, and also the other piece of it, especially when you're teaching, whatever it is, whenever you're coaching or teaching, it's important to see the person and connect with the person that you're coaching, because you can get, there's body language, there's cues. Are they following you? Are they understanding what you're coaching them on? Are they buying it, right? Like, are you selling this? Are they with you? And so and that's important when I'm teaching the financial literacy. And so to just present to one sleeping guy and a sea of like 49 boxes, it was the worst experience ever. And I said, nah, something's got to change. And so then that was why Ecamm has been so crucial to my success, not only as a content creator, but also as a banker, because there's no other banker. I'd be hard pressed to find a banker to give a presentation the way I give a presentation, thanks to Ecamm. And what that does is that, and it's not just Ecamm, right? Again, it's your lighting, it's your audio, it's your camera. But what it does is, as soon as I come on screen and we put together all of those pieces, a big part is people see that, and now they're like, you command the presence, digitally present your best self. You command the presence. And, needless to say, 2 years later, I'm getting people asking me questions, and it's just more of the flow. And I'm okay with doing those presentations, because had I not found Ecamm, I don't know if I'd still be a banker doing that, honestly. I'd probably be like, I quit. I can't do this anymore. I'm not presenting people who are sleeping. So
Well,
that's
awesome,
where it's
awesome.
at, man.
So as you're telling that story though, and I'm listening,
Yeah.
you're learning skills, right, in that process of
Yeah.
going
Yep.
from sales, retail
Yeah.
sales, to
Yeah.
banking, to niching down in banking, and now presenting, and now being asked to do. So you're learning the skills that you are using now in your everyday life.
Get it. So that's so funny. And I feel like I've just recognized that most recently, I'm going to say in the last 6 months, literally what you just said. I'm now the community manager with a company called Switchboard Live. We do simulcasting. We do something called viral stream share, which is very similar to channel pairs, restreams channel pairs, but our viral stream share is like on steroids. It's great and amazing. Um, but I was at a networking event with the CEO, Rudy from Switchboard, and literally, like, the light bulb went off. And I was like, man, I didn't enjoy networking as a banker. I didn't enjoy these types of events. However, had I not gone through that networking and being forced to be a part of chambers and rotaries and do all of those things, if had I not been forced to go to high schools and teach financial literacy, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing now, because I'm literally using all of those skills as a live streaming coach, as an entrepreneur, networking for myself, knowing the resources of, oh, I need to be a part of the chamber. Oh, I know what a micro lender, right? Like, even those things, where I was educated community, I can now put into play for myself. And that is absolutely huge.
Yeah, I love that. Love that. So right now there's somebody
Yeah.
watching, right? And somebody's going to be
Yeah.
watching who
Yeah.
their
Yep.
their dream is not really where life has taken them, right? So
Yeah.
they wanted to be a police officer,
Yeah.
and now they're in banking, right? And
Yeah.
they're like beating themselves up, like, oh, I need to do the. What do you say to that person whose life is kind of taken them in a direction that's different from what they planned?
Stay in faith, and it doesn't happen overnight. The biggest thing I think I feel like, and it's so cliche sometimes, but it is staying in faith. I was a banker, like a branch manager. I've been banking now for about 12 years, but I was a branch manager for 9 years, 6 years, 6 years. I did not like it. I did not. The only thing I liked about it was coaching my team that reported to me. But everything else that I did, like the external business development, like all of, I did not like it. But now here we are 9 years later, between, um, no, it's actually, yeah, it is 12 years because I've been a loan officer for 6 years and I was a branch manager for 6 years. So here we are, 12 years later in its entirety. And again, it's full circle. I would have never, when I got that call from the recruiter from Wells Fargo 12 years ago, if someone 12 years ago would have told me, India, in 12 years or in 10 years from now, you're going to be opening the door to start your own business on live streaming and, video production, I would have been like, what? No. What are you talking about? Absolutely not. There's no way. There's no way, right? Like I would have never, being an entrepreneur was never in my mind. But again, when I think about all of those pieces, whether it's project management, whether it's reporting, it's analytics, it's the operations, that's what's helped lined me up to where my success has come from so far and where I know my success will continue to grow from. So it's always, I feel like God is always, it may not be enjoyable, but whatever the lessons that he is teaching you, it's for a reason that you will use later on in life. And it may be a year later, it may be 12 years later, but you will use it.
Love it, love it, love it. Well, we are talking with India Delgado, having a great conversation. Wow, so amazing, amazing life so far. Now,
Yeah.
at some point in this process, you pivoted, or you're pivoting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody's using that word now,
Yeah.
and so we're in live stream. How did you make the decision to live stream?
Yeah.
Did that come as a direct result of your banking? And how did you decide live streaming versus other kind of content creation?
So not a direct result, but it was again the banking and the pandemic forcing me to learn about Ecamm, right? Because that wasn't really live streaming. It was just using Ecamm's virtual camera. That's all it is, right? That's why I used Ecamm for the virtual camera, setting up the production within Ecamm and sending that out to Zoom. Um, but as you know, Dwayne, the community in Ecamm is like no other community that I've seen out there, right? So for me, even being a community manager with Switchboard Live, that's what I want to emulate, that community within Switchboard Live, because you see how helpful we are, whether it's with live streaming pros, because they have a great community as well, or Ecamm, right? Like that's how you and I connected. Jump on, ask questions, all of that stuff. And I remember being engaged in the Facebook community and getting to know people and asking questions, looking at the posts, watching people's feeds and stuff. And one day I had started, right, because that's when I started to build my gear. So I'm buying microphones, I'm buying arms, I'm buying cameras, because I'm building out what my studio, is right now, in essence, slowly but surely. Um, and I had a mic that I actually had two mics, and one was the one that I still have to this day. It was my Lewitt 240. That's the white microphone that I use 99% of the time. And I had the Shure MV7 had just come out, and I had bought the Shure MV7. One's a condenser microphone, one's a dynamic microphone. And I was trying to figure out what worked the best for my voice. What did I like? What did I feel comfortable with? And so I started to do a recorded video to put out there. And back then, a lot more people were going live in Ecamm and stuff like that. I was like, well, let me let me just do this thing here, press go live and get people's feedback within the community. Because again, that's what Ecamm is to give people feedback. So my very first live stream was, I think, on November 6th of 2020. It was 2 years ago, just made 2 years ago, in the Ecamm community. And I had the Rodecaster Pro. I had just gotten the Rodecaster Pro. I was testing both the microphones, the Lewitt and the MV7. And when I tell you the people that showed up, that was the very first time I interacted with Pastor Felicia. That was the very first time I interacted with Doc Rock, the very first time I interacted with Lemuel, with Bradley Vincent. And it was a 3-hour live stream. My first live stream ever. And it was because the community showed up and everybody's in the chat and we're all talking. And I was like, guys, I gotta go. And they're like, no, you are too fun. And we just kept on. And what's so funny was that I did that. Doc came in the stream. He was like, listen, when you're done with this stream, I'm streaming. And he was streaming with Bradley Vincent. He was like, come through. Here's the link. If I'm still streaming, come through. I ended my 3-hour live stream and jumped on the live stream with Doc and Bradley for maybe another half an hour. And that was the snowball effect. That's how Doc and I instantly linked. I started coming on his Saturday shows for months. Like I was like his little mini co-host for a hot minute on his Saturday shows. And then Doc built out Let's Get Live. And then it was over from there. Like that was a thing for me. It was like, oh yeah, this is me. This is what I do. And that's how I fell in love with live streaming.
Wow. And watching your interaction with the audience during that 100 days, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. It was amazing to just
Thank you.
see how it flowed and see the support in the community and how you kind of talked with them. And it was almost like you were sitting in the same room.
Yeah. Yeah, because, and so that's what I mentioned before. Engagement is everything, right? Especially because it's literally, you're literally talking to the camera, right? There ain't nobody else around in the room right now. It's just you talking to the camera into the microphone. Although we are talking to an audience, but you are talking to a camera. So it's not like, when you're with your friends or with your family, you guys tell a joke and you can lean over and push that person on the shoulder or, like, go shoulder to shoulder. There's none of that, right? You can't make eye contact and do a nod if like you guys get in a message, right? None of that when you're in the room with someone. And so paying attention to the comments and really interacting, bringing the comments, like I said, bringing the comments on screen and really reading. It's like reading the room, right? Unfortunately, as no people, but your comments is your room, reading the room and getting people to kind of, and that's what get people to come back more. Cause I feel like that's an adrenaline rush and it's an endorphin goer where you bring that person's name on screen, they see their avatar, they see their name, and you're talking to them, you're making eye contact. They feel special, right? It's that now intimate Sammy superstar. They feel intimate, right? And then it makes them want to come back for more. And it's a lot. Listen, it's a lot because you're producing your show. You want to press the button. You want to you have a thought. It is a lot. But I think that is at that point what makes a community versus just people having watched your thing, having watched your channels and subscribing. The community is the ones that show up every day and interact, and they get to know you. They get to know your family and who you are. And so I think that's huge.
Awesome. Well, let's give a shout out to Sammy. Sammy, thanks for coming through, man. Sammy, I love when I see your name in my stream or in my things that I do on some of the other platforms. So glad that you're here, and love what you're doing with your shorts, by the way.
I know, man. Sammy's killing it.
Sammy's crushing it, isn't he? What?
Man, yeah. I'm like, all right, Sammy, I got something to aspire to. I'm gonna do this. Yeah.
I know. Well, let's talk about that just happened, right? So Sammy comes on. Hey, Sammy, how you doing? We're talking to him. So right now, and Sammy, we're going to use you for a minute. Yeah. What do you think happens to someone like Sammy who sees, like you said, talk through that again. They see their name, we interact with them, we call them out, we pump them up, we give them a shout out. What's going on in their mind and in their hearts right now?
They feel special. That is it. That is the short and narrow of it. They feel special. They feel recognized. They feel acknowledged. And that's right. Like, even if you like go to couples counseling, or, when you talk to therapists, like being, or even for you, for yourself, being that self validation, feeling acknowledged by your partner, by your loved ones when you're talking, that is so important to human nature. So it's the same thing. Sammy chose to come on and click on your channel. Sammy saw that you were live, chose out of all, if he's on YouTube, chose like of all those little boxes that come up on screen, actively chose your live over all of the other choices. Oh, absolutely. I'm going to call that person out and say hello to that person, because that's like a person walking in your home that you've invited them to, because you're doing a live, you're inviting everyone to your home, right? You're opening the door. So that's like you inviting someone to your home. They walk in the door, you see them, and you can't say hello. It's like, well, I don't want to be here. That's not very welcoming. And so that's the thing. People want to feel acknowledged. And it's also a respect factor too. Oh,
Wow. Now, what? It's amazing when someone explains something to you and it connects with you.
yeah.
The
Yeah.
whole walking in the house and ignoring the person, I had never thought about it like that.
Right.
And,
Right.
and we would never do that. We wouldn't, we would
Never.
never let somebody
If
walk in and
you
just
say you're throwing a party, right? You have a housewarming party, you throwing a party, you send this person an invite, and then they walk in the door to show up to your party, and you're not gonna be like, yo, thanks for coming through, man, and show love. What? Are you crazy? That person will hang out for a little bit, take some of your free food. So they'll take some of the free knowledge that you're giving, right? If we put
Mhm.
it back into, content creation, they'll take from you. They're never going to give back, and they're probably never coming back. So they're never going to give back to you, and they will never come back neither.
And they'll be
So
talking about you on the block, right?
you're
if we
right,
put
you're
it in
right, you're
if we
right.
put it in the Brooklyn
Mhm.
terminology.
You're right. You're right about that. Giving you the side eye.
I
Your
love
name
it,
will come
love
up
it.
and be like, I don't mess with that person. Mm-mm.
Right.
Right? Like, nah. It's true.
Oh, so the title of this thing is live streaming for success, right? So
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
did some things kind of actively. You
Yeah.
decided to do some things in the space
Yep.
that has garnered more attention for you, some more
Absolutely.
opportunities.
Yep.
And I guess before we get to that question, the
Yep.
person who's out there who wants to be a content creator, right? They have something in them and they are either afraid of putting it out. Nobody's going to watch. Who am I
Yeah.
to be the one to put it out? I don't
Yeah.
have the
Yeah.
right gear. All those things that we
Yeah.
ask
Yep.
ourselves.
Imposter syndrome at
Imposter
its
syndrome.
finest. Man.
Talk about that for a minute.
Yeah. Oh, imposter syndrome. That is a very real thing. Again, you can talk to a therapist about it, because it is happens to all of us, even if you're not thinking about being a content creator, right? Um, and it can really debilitate you, right? Because it comes in and it's just self-doubt, honestly, is what that really is. If we want to put that in a much more simpler form, it's just self-doubt, where you start looking for all of the reasons to not do something, because you think that there's someone else out there that can do it better than you, or you're just not good enough, or you don't have the recognition or the accolades, or whatever the case may be. Um, and I don't know if imposter syndrome ever goes away. I think that when people acknowledge it, you can get to a point that you can acknowledge it within yourself. You're able to acknowledge it trying to rear its ugly head, and then you learn how to manage it. Sometimes you win that battle, sometimes you don't. And the days that you don't, that's okay. You may not win the battle with imposter syndrome today, but then you just got to give it a try again tomorrow, right? So that is absolutely like huge, with just really putting yourself out there, not worrying, right? Because one, it's, you don't know what you don't know. You don't know till you do it. You don't know if you know how to do this, or you actually have to do the application, you have to go through the process. And, just 1% better every day, right? So if you don't start, then how can you possibly get 1% better today to then have the opportunity to get 1% better tomorrow? So it's just starting and putting yourself out there. And the other thing, and this is how I started my YouTube channel. No, again, we're talking about 12 years ago, I think, are my very first videos. Have nothing to do with what I do now. I talk about this a lot too. My videos are still on there, have nothing to do with what I do now. They're car videos. And the reason why I started my YouTube channel was because I was doing, I'm a car girl. So I was just tinkering with my car and the light bulb went off one day. And I was like, well, if I needed help learning how to do this, and all of the videos that I searched never explained it in a way that made sense to me, I'm sure that there's one other person out there in the world with this same exact car that's gonna have the same exact issue. Let me help that person. Um, Here we are 12 years later. Some of those car videos have like 60,000 views, 70,000, and those are like the worst camera, potato camera, bad audio. I didn't camera shaking, but it's like, again, just start. Just start, because chances are is if you have this issue or whatever it is you want to talk about, if you had that thought, there's someone out there that can relate, and that thought and that message is going to resonate to. And if you can help just one person, that's it. That's what it's about.
Oh, just helping the community. And so throughout
That's it.
your stories that you're telling, though, I do see
Yeah.
that theme of helping. So
Helping.
even when
Yeah.
even when you're trying to fix your car, you're like, okay, how can I help
Yeah.
somebody else?
Yeah. That's why I said when I really, and I was forced, I think, transitioning from being a bank manager to being a loan officer was a big part of it. Where I had to I stop, and because that was a career change, the same industry, but it was a career change. And then also monetarily, right? Because I went from being salaried only, where I knew that I was going to get paid the same every 2 weeks, to being commissioned, which is if there were months that I didn't get paychecks, literally, right? Like, so a drastic structure change financially. So when you're forced with a huge financial decision like that, you better sit down and you really better think about, well, why am I doing this? And not just a why for me, it was that, how can I be successful? How is this going to work for me? How do I make it work for me? Because I had to be sold, because I was successful as a branch manager. I had already been at the career where I was making over six figures. That's a huge thing, to know that you're getting a guaranteed six figures a year, and to switch. And I mean, now the potential is way more than that, right? Not way more than six figures, but way more than what I was doing, but is not guaranteed, is all on me. That took a lot of self-reflection, a lot, because again, it's all on you, because it's like you're being self-employed. So if you don't put in the work, you're not going to close deals. So in order for me to convince myself and I always believed in myself, that wasn't the issue, but it was, is this the right thing for me? Is this the right move? And it was at the core, I'm going to love doing this because I'm going to love helping people. And honestly, outside of Radio Shack, because of the tech, that was what I loved about Radio Shack. I love doing mortgages, because I'm helping people that look like us get into homes that they never thought they'd ever be able to obtain. And I can't even describe that feeling. So helping people, that's my theme.
Helping people.
Mhm.
Now, and I love that, because on your show, right?
Yeah.
When I watch
Yeah.
there, and let's just say this for everybody. So all of us who are content creators,
Yeah.
there's a reason we're content creating, right? There was a reason
Yeah.
we're doing that. But what I love when I watch you is that the heart for helping comes out above any other thing that may be okay? Well, I'm doing this because I'm doing 100 days, or I'm doing,
Right.
but you're there and you're putting everything in
Yeah.
to helping those folks that are watching.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. That just comes naturally to me. I think a big part of it, and even with the 100 days, and I know you and I spoke about this, I think at one point when I did my 100 days, it's just at that point I'm committed to the viewers, right? At that point I'm committed to the community because again, I'm doing this 100 days, and I said that during my 100 days. I'm doing this, but there were people like Dwayne. You showed up not every night, but you showed up a lot of that 100 days. You showed up when you could, is what I know. I know that if you had free time, you tuned in because you were tuning in multiple times a week. And so for me, it was at that point, you guys committed right along with me because there were certain viewers that, like you showed up consistently week after week. Paul, Mr. Moderator, did the 100 days with me because he was my moderator. And there were people like Kathy Walker. Kathy, I think out of 100 days, if she missed 10, that was too many. And so at that point, it's like, no, these people are here. They're showing up. I need to make it worth their time. Because again, of all the things you can be doing, I went live at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard every day. Of all the things, that is dinner time for you guys that have kids, have families, you're getting out from work. Of all those things, you guys are choosing to dial in and then also be engaged because it's not like because there are people that'll dial in and watch, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? Dial in, put it on the TV, watch, and not comment. Just be running errands or cooking dinner and, half listen, half not. The people that showed up were actively talking to me and asking questions and, giving feedback that it's like, oh, I am all in for you guys because you guys are all in me. And I think that it is a two relationship. And I think that, a big part of my community as well, that the community recognizes that I recognize who they are and I'm going to give. I'm going to give. And so they give me back. And it's just, overflowing cups.
Awesome, awesome. We got Animal Paradise. I think is Janet. Is that you? Who came through and says, hi, everybody. Hey, glad that you were here. Glad that you have joined us.
Yeah.
So glad that you're here.
LSP family. Yep.
There you go.
Hi.
Awesome. Right. So helping. So
Yeah.
let's come now to the 100 days. And I know I keep saying the 100 days, but there were some things that you did. First of all, why did you do the 100 days? What was going on? Why did you decide to do it? And tell us a couple of things that you learned through that whole process.
Okay. And so I have these answers off the cuff because I just did a stream with Tanya Smith last night and she asked me similar questions. So I'm prepared. But I did the 100 days because I was coming out of a season of my life. I was engaged and that relationship fell through. We were living together. And at that point, like you want to talk about going from one season to another, that's huge because now I'm mourning a relationship. I'm figuring out a new home for me, my home, because I didn't have a home anymore. So transitioning out from there, I decided because now at this point I was already doing mortgages probably for 4 years. And so I was like, well, I'm not going to rent anymore. I'm going to go and buy my own home. And so in 4 months from when that relationship ended, I started my home search and closed on my home in 4 months. That's huge because a home purchase is literally the biggest purchase that anyone will make in their lifetimes. So I did that in 120 days in 4 months. Once I closed, I transitioned from one bank to another. So a new job, for lack of better words, right? Like a new company and things like that. And I was still trying to live stream throughout all of that, and it became too overwhelming. And so I stopped. I closed on my home on April 30th. I tried, but in the summertime, I came to a dead halt. I think I streamed after my birthday and then I was done. And so in July to January of this year, I didn't stream, nothing, radio silence. And then I had been in my house, a year already. I had, well, almost a year. I had been settled in. I'm now healed from that relationship. I'm now settled into my job, right? Angie and I started dating. So in a new relationship also, and then that's the other thing. I also started a new relationship. And so getting to know my partner and, going through that, because those are also challenges. Once I started streaming again, it was weekly on my Sundays, and March came around, and I was like, for myself, am I in or am I not in? Is this for me, or like what are you doing with this, right? And so I was mulling it over with my community, and I was like, I think I'm going to do a challenge, because there were a few people that had done 100 days or variations of a 100-day challenge. And I was like, I think I want to do this. Community instantly was like, yeah, you're going to do it. If you do it, we're going to support you. And then that was it. My community, they're like, yeah, you're going to do it. So again, my commitment to my community, I was like, oh, okay. I started on March 6th, and I did my 100 days. I never missed a day, regardless of what. And there was a lot. I mean, think about it. Early this year, mortgages, their interest rates were at record lows. I was busy. So I was like super busy with customers. I would end my day, I would take a break for about an hour, and then I would come back downstairs to the studio. I would stream. In the same time frame, I launched my business. I launched my masterclass. I formed the legal registration of my business. So I started that process to actually, a lot of people say they have their own business, but they don't have an LLC and it's not registered with the state. No, I went through the process where I have a legally formed entity. I did all of that stuff. And what that did, Dwayne, you already mentioned about like opportunities and things like that. And I've been talking about this a lot recently, that it's, first of all, do it for yourself. That's one. Don't do it for anyone else. Don't do it for the Joneses. Do it for yourself, for whatever the reasons you need to do that for, and then show up for yourself. And if you do it for those reasons, that it's for you, and you show up for you, you're going to see how opportunities will come. And so here we are, fast forward. I did my 100 days, and, Loria and I from Live Streaming Pros just started to really connect a little bit more. I've known her since I started live streaming. But what that did was that put me at the forefront, as a creator, and I was able to exhibit my coaching skills throughout the 100 days, right? So coaching people and teaching people through things. And so that created an opportunity to work with Live Streaming Pros as a coach with the Accelerator program. That was all from, obviously, all me, but it was because I showed up consistently and I put in the work. I would have never, like, I think about that. I used to fangirl over Loria back when I started doing research 2 years ago and learning about Ecamm and stuff. I was like, oh my God, and hearing her stories and seeing the things that she was doing, I was like, that's so cool. And to now, here we are 2 years, almost 3 years later, to be able to say that I'm a part of the LSP team, and she's trusted me with her clients to be a coach for her clients. Man, that's huge. And then the same thing, networking on LinkedIn and trying to build my network and my community there. I met with the CEO, Rudy, from Switchboard Live, and that created that opportunity where I am a community manager and I'm helping to build a community there. And then just continuing to build out my business with consulting and the master classes and things like that. So it's been tons of blessings, but those 100 days was, I'm glad that I did it, because I showed up for me, and now I feel like I'm bearing the fruits of those labors.
Oh, so that is a wow, a lot of stuff packed in there.
Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. It's,
Wow.
so it's important. And you know that I'm always very vulnerable. I'm honest. And it's not just, I guess it's a combination of both, but that's important again, because we're people, and people have the same real life things, buying a home, going through a breakup. And so the one other thing you did say about what I learned from the 100 days was I did go through a bout of depression, and it was about probably day 70. And I think you and I spoke about this when I did my call with you individually. But I went through a bout of depression, and it was because I was so committed to the 100 days that I didn't take care of myself the way I should have, right? So I stopped working out, physically working out. So any physical activity that I was used to doing, I stopped completely. I stopped journaling. I stopped self care. I have a mindfulness coach that I meet with at least once a month. Sometimes I meet with her more often than once a month. I stopped those sessions, and it was because I was so busy at the bank. I was doing the live streams. I was right, so it was like I built, launched my, like all of that stuff took up literally as many hours in the day as I can stay awake physically. I can stay awake, and I did not I prioritized my 100 days, and of course the bank work, because that's what's paying the bills. I prioritized those things over my self-care. And so in day 70 it hit, like I was really lonely. I was really sad. Like it was real depression work. Like I'm home crying real tears telling Angie, I miss you, I feel alone here, I don't have anyone. Like it was bad. um and so what I've learned from that is, if it gets to that point where I'll do a challenge again, but if the challenge interferes where I'm not seeing my mindfulness coach, I'm not, riding my bike, I'm not doing any self-care, and it's affecting those things, then the challenge becomes null and void at that point. Or I just have to do the challenge differently. It may not be every day. It just be maybe every other day or whatever the case may be. Um, I would never neglect my self care because it was everything. So I'm still not going to the gym, but I'm journaling. I'm meeting with my mindfulness coach, right? It's those things that you may not be able to do everything, but you should be able to pick and choose and do some of the things, two of the three things, or one of the three things. I stopped doing everything altogether, and that was very detrimental for me. So I would never do that again. I would never advise that to anyone.
Wow, wow. Well, thank you for sharing that. Well, let's hop back over
Of
to
course.
our chat. And Janet says,
Yeah.
thanks, Dwayne. So happy to see you both. Sorry I'm late. We're just glad you came through, Janet.
All
Yes.
good. Yeah,
I
absolutely.
will watch the replay, of course. And Janet actually is going to be on the show later this month. So you want to make sure that
Yay.
you come back. She said, yes, it's me.
Exciting.
I
Yeah.
knew it was you, Janet. And then she says, oh, so many so many changes, big life changes. You are
Mhm.
amazing.
Thank
And
you. Thank you, Janet.
and
I
yes,
appreciate
she
that.
is, Janet. She is amazing. Well, so
Thanks,
India,
guys.
it's been so love hearing the story. And so here you're in a
Thank you.
space where
Yeah.
you are kind of getting the fruits for some of the things that you've been doing. Content creation is a long game,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
often people want that one video, right? And I'll tell you, let me be honest.
Yeah.
When I first started, I was like, I put out a video and I put it out and like, and then I hit the button to refresh.
Refresh. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I was like, man, it's a second and nobody watched it yet.
No views? What is I
No
still do
views.
that. I do that with my shorts. I'm refreshing and I'm like, what do you mean? Like what? Why? What's happening
Right.
here?
So for the person who has been at this, I don't know, a year and a half, they're kind of getting tired
Yeah.
of doing.
Yeah.
What do you say to them in terms of, because you did some stuff, you said
Yeah.
70 days in, you're like, oh my God, but you showed
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
What do you
Yeah.
say to that person now who's kind of starting to feel that lull and they're not sure what to do?
So I from learning that experience, I will always say listen to your body, listen to yourself, listen to your mind, right? So if you feel like you have to take a break, and Tanya and I spoke about this yesterday, the term creator burnout, that is, I feel like, becoming more prevalent in people openly talking about it. Not that it's never been a thing. I think that people are now being more okay with acknowledging that and saying that they're going through it. Or you see the YouTube titles, I'm taking a break, or I just came back from a break, or right, like, especially the bigger creators, they're they talk about it. So if you feel that way, take a break. Don't be gone forever. And also just understand that fine line. Is it just you just being lazy? Like you just maybe need to take a literally an hour break and take a nap versus taking a few days off or a few weeks off or whatever the case may be. Just recognizing, is it imposter syndrome creeping in, or is it a very real thing that you, for your own emotional and mental well-being, you have to take a break? So that's one. Two, surrounding yourself with other people that are trying to do the same thing or have done the same thing, and talking about it, right? Because I think that's another part, is that people always try to put up a brave face. And that's why it's so important for me to be vulnerable and to be honest. Because a lot of times what you see creators doing is that they just put on a brave face and they do it and they tell you, just do it, just do it. You got to just press record. Listen, man, that's easier said than done. Right? Like, and let's talk about the stuff that's outside of you just pressing record, and let's just have a real, because people are human. So really talking about it and being okay, and because you'll never know, and sometimes you just need to just vent, and that'll be enough to just say, oh, okay, I'm good. You know what, I am going to live stream, or I am going to record that video, or I am going to do that blog. So really surrounding yourself with other like-minded people, and that's it. Those are really the two biggest things. If you need to take a break, take a break. It's not the end of the world. Who are you proving what to, is really understanding, like really doing that self-reflection of who are you doing this for? Again, are you doing this for you? And that's why I did the 100 days, because I didn't do it for other people. Yeah, I was committed, but I know that if I would have shown up on day 70 to you guys as my community and said, I'm depressed, I'm crying every day, I can't do this, if anything, my community would have yelled at me for not stopping sooner, right? So I know that that wasn't it, but it was because I kept on, because I was committed to myself. So understanding who you're really doing it for, and if you're doing it for you, that's good. But if you feel like you're doing it for other people, then just pull back, take a break, and reassess and reevaluate. So,
Wow. Now I'll tell you, I'm gonna say this. I haven't spoken to anything. I watched a video that Kat did recently.
Yeah.
Actually, just a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
And it really touched me to see how vulnerable she was in the video. Just saying, "Hey guys, this is what's been happening." And I'll tell you, sometimes it feels. It's hard sometimes to be vulnerable, right? Because you're putting yourself out there, and sometimes you don't know how people are going to respond.
Absolutely.
But it just really does connect you with the people. And if you're doing it from a place of being genuine and honest, and then people connect with that.
Absolutely. And connecting with the right people, right? So you're right. You don't know who or how people are going to respond. But if there are people out there that respond in a non-supportive way, then those aren't your people. That's not your tribe. And that's good. That's good. Filter the weeds out, because you don't want those people anyway, right? So you want the ones that are going to show up and really be supportive and appreciate and respect you, more than the ones that just either try to brush it off or, sometimes even worse than that. So
Right. So amazing conversation we're having with India Delgado. Let's hop over to the comments. And Janet says, okay, let's do this one. So such hard lessons, but good ones. And thanks for reminding me. I stopped my journaling a few weeks ago. I'm getting back. Yes, Janet.
Yeah.
Yes. Love that. She says, India, you are such an inspiration for so many. Thank you for being you.
Thank you.
And then such wise words. Thank you. Such wise words. So, and man, I got to let you go. I do. But such richness that you're giving here and sharing.
Yeah.
Finally, just give us a couple of pointers, right? 1, 2, 3, maybe, to the person who will be still watching, and they say, hey, I want to be successful in live streaming.
Yeah.
What would you say to them as we get to the end of the show?
Oh, man. So work with what you got because it's very easy to fall into that Joneses, right? So starting, definitely you do have to start and don't get caught up with the semantics. So work with what you got. That's one piece. So in terms of like, what do I mean by that? Working with your cell phone, working with, just your cell phone at that point. If that's what you got, work with your cell phone and then upgrade little by little by little. The second piece I would say is really finding your tribe and knowing who your tribe are because it's so there's levels with your tribe of there's going to be people and I said this once about earlier I just mentioned overflowing cups because if you think about a stack of cups and you overflow, right, you pour into one cup and you let the cup, if the cups are stacked, you let the cups overflow because one cup feeds to another, feeds to another. So if you're in the middle, right, you're giving to the people that may be one step where you were yesterday or a month before. But then there's someone who is standing where you are today. That was there yesterday, right? So the overflow, when you think about overflowing cups, it's you're giving, but someone's giving to you. So finding a tribe that you can be in that space of the cups are constantly overflowing because people are giving to each other. So I would say that's the second piece. And then the third piece is just having fun. Have fun. And if you're not having fun, then you got to change your niche. You got to change what you're doing. You're not doing it for you. Have fun. That is the most important thing.
Oh, I love it, love it, love it. Have fun. And I enjoy what I do. And I'm enjoying this conversation. Why don't you take a minute and just tell people if they want to connect with India Delgado, if they want to engage you, if they want to find out more about you, how can they do that? Why don't you do that right now?
Yeah, of course. So, all my information is here on the screen. My handle is indiad.live. So literally, if you do a / it's, YouTube, Facebook, whatever the case may be, you'll find me. Just search me on YouTube. My contact information is on YouTube if you go to the About section. And I'm all over the place, right? Like I'm in Ecamm, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Switchboard. So if you want to reach out, any one of those methods there. And then also on my website, I do offer coaching, I offer consulting, I have some master classes and things like that. And you can also contact me on my website as well, courses.indiad.live. And that's how you can reach me.
Awesome. And India, once again, thank you for coming through and dropping information on us. I enjoyed what we were doing. And you hope you will let us bring you back.
Yeah, whenever. Yeah, absolutely.
And do some things in the future.
Yeah.
All right. So why don't you hang out in a minute? I'm going to close out and then we'll chat again. All right.
Sounds good. Bye, guys.
Wow. Amazing. Thank you once again for coming through, India. And guys, how to be successful. And you've been hearing a theme, right? For all the people that have been coming through. Learn from where you are, right? You may not be in the spot that you want to be. You may not be following even the path that you planned, but there are skills, there are opportunities, there are things that you could learn right where you are. Take advantage of that. And we're playing a long game, right? So you hear me say all the time, educating, empowering, encouraging. That's not just for today, right? This is like the long game because we've got an entire life ahead of us. And all the things that we are doing right now are preparing us for the way and for the place that we're going to be in. So that's why I love this month, highlighting people who are doing their thing in their space, wherever they find themselves. And a lot of times it's not what they planned, but life happened and they took a different turn. And right now they are reaping the benefits of all the things that have been happening to them, right? If you have not done so, watch my video from last night and you'll hear a little bit about my story. And you'll hear going back at the beginning of the month, all the people that we've had on, including India tonight, who have said, hey, you got to get in there and you've got to show up. Okay. So you got to show up and you've got to embrace it. And there are times where you might have to say, hey, I can't do this right now because I need to take care of some personal things. And that's okay. Be honest. Be honest with yourself. Be honest with those who are watching, and you will be successful. All right. So glad that you guys are here. We are in the middle of Vlogmas. Remember, go out there. If you see any content creation or content creator, any video, any post, any whatever that has this logo, you want to get over there. And you may not normally even consume that type of content. You may not normally watch that type of video. You may not usually read that type of content. But this month, I want you to go over and let them know that you support them and what they're doing in trying to improve and trying to get their stuff better, right? Because that's what we're doing. And that's what we're doing this entire month. So come on back, because our month is just halfway through and we've got a big lineup that's coming for you through the rest of the month. Tomorrow night, come back at 7 o'clock and you will be hearing from me tomorrow night. Our guest will begin again on Sunday. So don't miss any of those. Diabetes 101, that playlist is on the channel that we did. Remember, we did that every day last month, right? So 29, I think, videos that we did in our lives that we did every day. All of that is there. You want to make sure you do that. Our playlist from August, Building a New Me, designing a new version of ourselves, how to set goals, how to determine what our why is, what our purpose is. All those things are in that playlist from August. You want to go make sure you go back and look at that. And then let's hop over right now and let's do our amazing question of the day before we head out. All right. So if you've been here, you know about our amazing question wheel. If you haven't, this is what it is, right? You'll see on the screen some questions that are on the wheel. If you want your question to show up, and if you want to get a shout out, go ahead and send your questions in to Dwayne Wood MD. You'll see it right there under my name. You can find me on any of our social media platforms, LinkedIn, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or dwood at Dwayne Wood MD, dwood at Dwayne Wood MD, and your question will show up there. And here are the rules, right? So I'm going to spin the wheel, and the question that it lands on, I'm going to answer. The question has to be, or the answer has to be concise. It has to be usable. It can't be nonsensical. And I've got to do it in 45 seconds. That's right, 45 seconds. So let's see what we're going to do, what question we're going to answer today. Let's go ahead and spin our wheel. Round and round and round it goes. Where it stops, I don't know. I keep saying that. I keep saying I've got to get a better phrase, but if you guys think of one, let me know. All right. How often should I get an A1C? How often should I get an A1C? So A1C is a hemoglobin A1C, and it is a marker for your diabetes control. And the goal for A1C is that it should be 6.5 or lower. Okay, so that's the goal. So that's the backdrop. So how often should I get an A1C? Good question. I like that. So let's see. Let's get 45 seconds up on the screen. And I think I can do that in 45 seconds. I tend to talk more, but we'll see. All right. 45 seconds. And I got to remember the question. How often should I get an A1C? Remember, the A1C is a marker of your control for 90 days. So 90 days of blood sugar control. And typically, it's the thing that we use for our diabetics. And the recommendation is that you get an A1C every 90 days, right? So basically every 3 months, because it lets us know what your prior 90-day blood sugar average has been. There are some places where we get it more often if we're having some difficulty with control, but that's a general rule. Did I do that? I think I may have had like 3 seconds or something left. All right. So once again, guys, thank you, and gals, thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us. So excited that you were able to come through. Janet, thank you for coming. Sammy, thank you for coming. And of course, our amazing guest, India Delgado, thank you for being with us. We will see you at our next episode, which will be tomorrow night. This is Dr. Dwayne Wood. That's Wood with an E. The E stands for endocrinology. Here on the channel, I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health, take charge of your life, create the life you've wanted, and go to the next level. Good night, everybody.